The meeting between former U.S. President Donald Trump and newly elected Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney on May 6, 2025, was surprisingly amicable. This came as a surprise to many, given Trump's history of hostile rhetoric towards Canada and his initiation of a trade war during his presidency. Despite past tensions, the two leaders maintained a friendly atmosphere throughout their meeting. Observers noted the stark contrast between the tone of this meeting and previous interactions between Trump and Canadian officials. Gone were the cutting remarks and thinly veiled threats that had characterized their past exchanges. In their place was a sense of camaraderie, even warmth, that took many by surprise. The reasons for this unexpected shift in tone remain unclear. Some speculate that it was a strategic move on the part of both leaders. Trump, no longer constrained by the office of the presidency, may have felt freer to express his personal affinity for Carney, whom he has long admired. Carney, for his part, may have calculated that a less confrontational approach would be more effective in advancing Canadian interests. Whatever the motivations, the friendly atmosphere of the meeting was undeniable. It stood in stark contrast to the often fractious relationship between the United States and Canada in recent years. Whether this newfound bonhomie will translate into more concrete cooperation between the two countries remains to be seen. Trump's comments during the meeting were a mix of praise for Carney, reiterations of past grievances, and a controversial proposal for the future of U.S.-Canada relations. He began by congratulating Carney on his recent election victory, calling it one of the greatest political comebacks of all time. Trump has long been an admirer of Carney's political acumen, and he made no secret of his belief that Carney would be a strong leader for Canada. However, Trump's praise for Carney was tempered by his continued insistence on several falsehoods regarding the U.S.-Canada relationship. He repeated his claim that the U.S. subsidizes Canada by $200 billion annually, a figure that has been repeatedly debunked by economists on both sides of the border. He also asserted that the U.S. provides Canada with free military protection, ignoring Canada's significant contributions to NATO and its own defense spending. Trump then went on to reiterate his long-held belief that Canada would be better off as part of the United States. "You know, you'd be the 51st state, and we'd all be happier for it," Trump reportedly told Carney, echoing a suggestion he has made on numerous occasions in the past. The comment, while seemingly made in jest, underscores Trump's deeply held conviction that the U.S. and Canada should be more closely aligned. Carney, for his part, responded to Trump's overtures and assertions with a mix of diplomacy and firmness. He thanked Trump for his congratulations and expressed his desire for a strong relationship between Canada and the United States. However, he did not shy away from pushing back against some of Trump's more outlandish claims. On the issue of Canada becoming the 51st state, Carney was unequivocal in his rejection. "I appreciate the thought, Donald," he reportedly said, "but I think we'll keep our own flag for now." The response, while delivered with a smile, left no doubt that Carney considered the idea a non-starter. Carney also challenged Trump's characterization of the U.S.-Canada trade relationship. He pointed out that Canada is one of the largest export markets for U.S. goods and services, and that the two countries have a long history of mutually beneficial trade. He acknowledged that there are some areas of disagreement, but expressed his belief that these could be resolved through dialogue and negotiation. Trade, unsurprisingly, emerged as a point of contention during the meeting. Trump, who has long been critical of Canada's trade practices, expressed his desire to renegotiate aspects of the USMCA, the trade agreement between the US, Canada, and Mexico. He specifically targeted Canada's dairy industry, which he has repeatedly accused of unfair trade practices. Carney, while acknowledging that the USMCA could be used as a framework for future discussions, pushed back against Trump's characterization of the deal. He defended Canada's dairy industry and insisted that any renegotiation of the USMCA must be done in a fair and balanced manner. The issue of tariffs, a major irritant in the US-Canada trade relationship during Trump's presidency, also came up. Trump, who imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum during his time in office, refused to entertain the idea of lifting them. Carney, for his part, reiterated Canada's position that the tariffs are unjustified and harmful to both economies. The meeting was attended by a number of high-ranking officials from both countries. On the U.S. side, Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer were in attendance. The Canadian delegation included International Trade Minister Dominic LeBlanc, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly, Public Safety Minister David McGuinty, and Canadian Ambassador to the U.S. Kirsten Hillman. The meeting also drew attention from Canadian politicians outside of the federal government. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, whose province relies heavily on trade with the United States, was particularly vocal in his criticism of Trump's rhetoric in the lead-up to the meeting. In a press conference the day before, Ford called Trump's comments about not needing Canada disrespectful and out of touch. He pointed out that Canada is a major supplier of natural resources and manufactured goods to the U.S., and that many U.S. states rely heavily on trade with Canada.